Yes, they just
Yeah.
added the candidate. Okay, hi Prashant.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, Prashant, thank you for joining. We have both the panelists in. So we'll start your interview with a screenshot. Do you have any government ID handy?
No.
You need to hold your ID. Just if you can bring your IDs, so please.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. I've taken the screenshot. You can put it down. Over to you, panelists. We are good to go. Please proceed.
Okay. So Prashant, this is Srijit. So this is going to take the technical round on behalf of TCS. Okay. So Prashant, can you please tell me about yourself, your current project that you are working on, and etc. Okay. How much is your total experience? Okay. Okay. So you have Java, microservices, Spring Boot, right? And you said you have backend. So you have also worked on Kafka, you said, right?
Yep. Kafka
Kafka,
and Spark both.
Spark about. Okay. Okay, great, great. Okay. Okay. So have you worked with JUnit or any test API? Like,
Yes. JUnits.
yeah. Okay. Okay, great, great. So let's start with Java, right? So can you tell me very basic example, where would you use an abstract class and where would you use interface, and why? I mean, please justify. You can give any example,
Hmm.
right?
Sure. So I think that depends on the perspective. It's not technical per se. Extends, we can only extend one class, but we can implement multiple interfaces. So that is the only reason I would differentiate between abstract and interface.
Any other reason?
Other than that, no, I think technically we never use abstract classes or interfaces thinking because they both provide abstraction and
Mhm.
interface provide 100% abstraction and abstract class can also provide 100% abstraction. So it totally depends on the requirement if the developer is having non-abstract methods or all abstract methods. So for me, that is the only reason.
Okay. Okay. Uh, so let's talk about overriding. So can you tell me if whenever we are having one method in parent class and same method being overridden in the child class, so is it okay or is it allowed to have other return type which is there in the parent class in the child class? I mean, can we
No,
have other return type?
no, we should have the same. Otherwise, that class will belong to the child class only.
Okay, so there is no possibility you are saying.
No.
And what about the exception? So in the exception that it throws from the parent class method, can we? Is there any possibility we can change a little bit in the child class method? Any possibility?
If we throw an exception, we have to catch it. So when we catch it, then we are good. Like whatever we want to display, if we want to print the entire stack trace, we can do that. Or we can actually throw another custom exception, differentiating between the instances of the parent versus the child classes that we have. Let's say if I have exception class, exception being thrown of type exception. So I can have custom if and else condition checking if runtime exception is there or maybe another child of exception class is there which is being thrown. I can, depending on that, I can throw several other type of custom exception. That totally depends on the requirement.
So you are saying that in the parent class, I have one kind of exception, let's say X, and in the child class, in the overridden method, in the signature, I can throw Y. Like I can write like it
If it is a child,
throws
yes.
Y exception. in the child weekend. So what should be the relationship between X and Y exception? Is there any relationship or any
Yeah, X should be the
connection?
parent or X should be the same.
X should be the same as
Like,
Y, or X should be the parent as
yes,
Y. Is that you're saying?
yes.
Okay. What will happen if it is vice versa?
So, like, I don't think it's only related to overriding rules. Even if you try to catch exception, multiple catch, if you have multiple catch block, and if you vice versa, this situation, it is not going to be allowed because this is not a valid scenario, right? According to Java. Like, first we have to have child like we have to establish parent and child relationship, and then we have to, in that order itself, we have to catch exceptions. So if it is being thrown because overrated methods get exception from parent, so it has to be first parent and then child, so that should be the relationship.
Okay. Okay. Have you heard about immutable class?
Yes.
So can you give me an example of immutable class and what is the usage of immutable class?
String is one, and usage is to save memory or maybe for security reasons.
Okay. So how would you make one class immutable?
Make class final, the variables of that class private and final, and constructor final have a getter have a parameterized constructor which should be public, and that parameterized constructor is responsible for initializing each and every variable. So yeah, these are the steps.
Okay. Anything else? Would you do any kind of other things other than what you have said?
Yeah,
Any other
that
point?
yep, that depends on the data structure which we are using inside the class. If we are using some let's say collection, then in that case I
Hmm.
have to also create a clone, and
Hmm.
that clone has to be returned so that we won't be able to modify the original copy. So deep copy
Hmm.
has to be used. I think that's the only
Okay.
step. Yep.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. 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 Can you tell me what is the relationship between hash code and equal?
There is a contract in between hash code and equals, and ultimately they are the methods of your object class, so that will be used by each and every object. So the contract says that if two objects are equal according to the equals method, then calling the hash code method on each of the two objects must produce the same integer value. Like
Okay.
if it is not required, like generally it is not required. If two objects are unequal according to the equals, then they are like good to go.
Have you anywhere in your previous work have you used? I mean, have you overridden hash code or equal?
Many times,
Uh,
like when we have to have a custom implementation in our hash map. Also, if you have,
hmm,
let's say, a key value pair as a custom class, let's say employee. So in that
hmm.
case, yes, we have to implement hash code, override hash code and equals.
Okay, how would that help
It helps to
with this
identify.
explain?
Basically basic things. Let's say if I like what happens is if we don't implement that, collision is going to get happen, and ultimately it is going to be a very time consuming process even to fetch get every operation is going to get messed up if we have a custom implementation. By implementing, we can directly let Java know that this is the employee's variable on which you have to identify if they both are equal or not, and these are the variables I want to use to generate the hash code. So that is the only reason which can help Java out so that it can know, okay, based on these operation I have to do something. So it will be then efficient enough.
I'm still not clear that how. So you said about collision. What do you mean by collision?
So collision happens when we have the same hash code for multiple key value pair or a entry object.
Mm,
So
mm.
collision, when collision happens, there is another data structure which Java uses to store those values. And if they keep on colliding, what will happen is the complexity will internally be O of n when we talk about uh, versions before Java 8. After Java 8, it is O of log n. So it is always a good practice. It is a conventional thing that we should always override hash code and equals if we have a custom implementation being used with HashMap.
Okay. Okay, good. So have you heard about uh, fail fast iterator
Yes,
and fail safe iterator?
yes,
So can you tell me in array list implementation, which kind of iterator is being used? Fail fast or fail safe?
fail fast.
Fail fast. Okay. How do you reduce that?
We can use like concurrent collections for that reasons, or we can again have a clone and then modify the values and then modify the original value with the cloned version. So that can be one logic according to me.
No,
Um,
no. I'm talking about how do you know that in array list? I mean, how would you know? Let's say that you do not know as of now that which kind of fail fast or fail safe iterator is it used. So how would you know that it is internally using it? I mean, by running any program, can you know
uh,
in array list?
okay.
I mean, let's say for now you do not know and you want to know and you don't have access to the source code of array list. You just want to know any
So
programmatically. Hmm.
if they throw concurrent modification exception, then I can know that it is a fail fast
Ah,
iterator.
got it. So how would you mimic that? Let's say you can write a small program. How would you mimic that using a program?
It's simple. While iterating over the array list, I can try to remove any element that can throw concurrent exception. And through that, I can know using try and catch block that, okay, this is a fail fast iterator.
Okay, great. So in Spring, let's move on to Spring. So in Spring, have you? Can you tell me why all of a sudden, few years back, all the after Spring came, so all the existing applications, all the existing team tried to upgrade to Spring from the legacy technology. So what leverage or what advantage did they get?
From which
Let's say
version to
you are an application developer. You are an application developer. Let's say you have a EJB application, and certainly you see that from the corporate it is said that we need to upgrade to Spring. We do not want to use EJB anymore. So what advantage? Not exactly, but briefly, can you tell what advantage that Spring would give if we have existing application and we would want to upgrade? What are the
so
advantages?
okay. So Spring basically provides many features. So since it came along, the primary feature was dependency injection and IOC. So through that, there is a lot of burden which can be reduced through Spring. So Spring Framework basically did all of the dependency coupling stuff for us. So that is the primary reason I would prefer Spring. Other than that, it is a lightweight framework, so it doesn't hurt to use that library in our project. It provides loose coupling because we are using dependency injection, so it's flexible. So these are the advantages that I see with Spring. With Spring
Okay,
Boot, there are more.
okay. So can you tell me in Spring Boot what are the added advantages?
So in Spring, basically we had to do a lot of configuration beforehand. We actually create a project. We had to do either an XML based configuration, annotation based, or a Java based configuration. Spring Boot reduced
Mm.
that functionality for us. It says that we don't have to do any kind of configuration. It will bootstrap that for us, and there is no need for deployment of war files. So because it also has embedded Tomcat server, and what to say, like, because like I think main reason or main advantage I see is like no need for XML configuration. So source code was reduced with that, so that was a good advantage.
Okay, couple of questions. First is, uh, let's say in Spring Boot, instead of using Tomcat server, you want to use some other server.
Mhm.
How would you do that?
So again, like Spring Boot provide us, let's say, can you give me an example which application server you want to use?
Let's say JT.
Okay, so what happens is Spring Boot comes with Tomcat embedded, but again we can have custom configuration, like we can do that through application.properties. So with that, I can like change or try to change the application server which I want to use along with it. I have never tried that, but again, Spring Boot is really custom, so I see that application.properties can be really helpful for us to, because like
Okay.
that way we can do that.
Okay. Okay. Let's say you have a library which is based on Spring. Okay, you have a custom library, and that custom library is used in a Spring Boot service or Spring Boot application. So, but in the Spring Boot application, the package structure is a.b.c. Let's say that. So, but in the library, it is different. It is x.y. So, how would you make sure that all the components of x.y, all the beans to be more specific, will be scanned in when it is integrated in Spring Boot app? Because in Spring Boot a.b.c, so it will scan everything that is coming under a.b.c or sub packages. But in library it is x.y. So how would you do that?
Okay, so one way is to use component scan annotation. Through that, I
Mhm.
can scan.
Okay,
Um,
where would you put that component scan annotation?
I
Which
can.
class?
Uh,
Hmm.
I think the main class. I would use
Okay.
there. Like let's say
Okay.
if I my application is my application, then I would put it there. Like also, I can think of one more way that let's say if we have multiple libraries, then I can create a separate Java class for each library, and
Hmm.
those classes I will import in my main class through import annotation.
Okay. Do you mean configuration class or what do you mean?
No, no,
What
not
class?
configuration class. So let's say the application, the library that I am going to import, let's say it's test.jar.
Hmm.
So let's say I created a new class specifically for test, and let's say the name is test ABC. So
Mhm.
I have annotation component scan in this class test ABC, but this test ABC class is being imported through or by my application.java where I have my main method.
Okay.
So that I can actually uh, I have some kind of readability. That's why I'm doing. Otherwise, I can directly do a component scan annotation for each and every library.
Have you heard about Spring Factories?
Pardon?
Spring dot factories.
Spring.factories? No, I haven't.
Okay. Okay. So in Kafka, you said you worked on Kafka. So
Yes.
in Kafka, can you tell me what is the purpose of consumer group?
Purpose. Okay.
Yes.
Consumer.
I mean, how we can leverage the consumer group or how it is used.
So basically, when we say group, so here consumer group is a set of customers, right? Or you can say consumer, sorry. Is a set of consumers. So let's say if I want to consume data from some topics, and these are the consumers that I'm grouping because they want same type or same kind of data. So partition of all those topics are divided among these consumers in the group. So, like as new group members arrive and old members leave, the partitions are reassigned so that each member receives a proportional share of the partitions. So we can, through that, we can do rebalancing of the group.
Hmm.
So,
Okay, got it. Okay. Okay. Last one more question. Last question. So, what will happen? Is there any relationship between number of partitions and the number of consumer in the same consumer group?
uh, okay, so partitions and
I mean, a partition for a same topic.
so, Kafka consumers belong to the like if they are belonging to the same consumer group, they have a group ID. So
Hmm.
the consumers in that group then divides the topic partitions as fairly amongst themselves. So it totally depends on the number of consumers and the information that they want to share among themselves. So what I mean is they divide fairly among each other
Mhm.
by let's say establishing that each partition is only consumed by a single consumer from that group. So it can be one on one, or maybe they can fairly share among them.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. Okay. I am done with the technical round. So,
Yeah, hi Prashant.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Okay, fine, Prashant. Yeah, I'm good with it. I think HR has left. We'll give your feedback. Do you have any questions for us?
No.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prashant. You
Yep.
can leave.
Thank you. Bye bye.